Good evening and welcome. And I'm glad some of you heard about this event and came. And I'm also hoping that people are actually watching over YouTube as well. Welcome to Tompkins County Legislative District 14 Candidates Forum. My name is Sally Grubb, and I am moderating this event on behalf of the League of Women Voters of Tompkins County. And I have 3 league volunteers here, 2 who are helping with questions, Alexis at the door, who's encouraging you to write questions during the evening and make sure you write them on the cards and give them to her. There is also up on the table a donation pot because we have nobody sponsoring this event. And so we're rather hoping that the audience will make donations to the League of Women Voters of Tompkins County Education Fund. That's a tax-exempt donation, and it'll help us pay our overhead costs. And then before we start, a very big thank you to the church for at the last minute letting us hold the event here. We had a lot of places who, for one reason or another, weren't able to help us. So big thank you to them. Now, the League of Women Voters is a non-partisan organization committed to defending democracy and empowering voters by bringing you the most up-to-date information available on national, state, and, at this time, local elections and issues of concern to voters. We encourage informed and active participation of citizens in government, work to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and influence public policy through education and advocacy. The League never supports or opposes any political party or candidate. This has been our policy for over 100 years. Membership is open to anyone of any gender who is 16 years and older. Please consider joining the League. It makes a tremendous difference to our power the more members we have. And remember, it doesn't matter what party you support. The League believes diversity, equity, and inclusion are priorities shaping our future. We believe that actively fostering a culture of inclusion that respects, celebrates, and values differences furthers our mission. Today is your opportunity to listen to and to ask questions of the 2 candidates running for District 14 Legislature, Michelle Wright and Christy Bianconi. I've never said your name before. Sorry, Ted. We've already received some questions, and as I say, you may submit more during the evening. We will be sorting and possibly editing some of the questions because we will not accept questions that are directed to just one candidate or are abusive. And we are live streaming this over YouTube, and a link to the recording will be posted on our website either tomorrow or the next day. We do have a video recording policy. Only we may record the forum, and it will, as I say, will be posted on our website. We do not permit any of you to video it on your phones and then edit it and quote only one person. Only licensed media may do that. We asked that audience members are respectful of both candidates and neither heckle nor applaud any statements they make. And now we are going to start with the opening statement, starting with Michelle and then Christy. So over to you, Michelle.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thanks for helping us live stream this. And thanks to the League of Women Voters, of course, for making this all happen. Such a cherished resource in our community. My name is Michelle Wright. And, oh, I've left some materials in the back there, some information about the county itself, district maps, my resume is back there as well. So I urge you to take some of that information home, not the laminated maps, please, but the other things there. So our county is rich in human resources with dedicated departments and agencies filled with experts. Okay. If elected, I'll be proud to collaborate with this team, building strong partnerships and working relationships to continue to move our community forward. Tonight, I want to share why I'm running and why I'm running as an independent, but first I'd like to express my gratitude to my opponent, Christy. Her dedication to the mental health sector is admirable, and the mental health crisis has personally touched my life, and I deeply admire Christy's compassion and commitment to building a better future. I'm also grateful to her as a candidate so that voters have a choice when they get to the ballot. Why am I running? I grew up in the town of Hector and went to Trumansburg schools K through 12. I feel so fortunate to live in Tompkins County. This is a vibrant community with people who are passionate about the world we live in. Local democratic systems are my passion. I started my career in the public education system and from there moved into town government. I served as both the second deputy supervisor and budget officer for the town of Ulysses, where I worked for 8 years. Before moving to town of Ithaca, I also served an elected term on the Trumansburg School Board. In these roles, I learned that local government leadership requires wearing many hats and also requires understanding of complicated municipal financial systems in order to ensure sustainable delivery of essential community services. Voters should know that municipal finance is the steepest learning curve for newly elected officials. There will be at least a 50% turnover in county legislator this year. And if elected, I'll bring stability when it comes to fiscal responsibility and oversight of public resources. Why am I running as an independent? I'm running as an independent because I believe in progress and democratic reform that meet the needs of the people. The foundation of my campaign is to contribute to the overall health of local democracy. I'm running as an independent in a campaign season where 13 out of the 16 legislative districts do not have a choice for county legislature. Uncontested elections are an earmark of an unhealthy democracy. The two-party system used to function in a way that channels participation. I think this election season, among other indicators, proves that is no longer as effective. I'm running as an independent because our community and society as a whole are in a dangerously polarized state. Dialogue is our sharpest tool. As an independent, I approach democracy through the lens of humanity, not ideology.
Christy.
I also Hello. I also want to thank the League of Women Voters for putting this on. I have to thank Michelle because she is the one who brought me to the League of Women Voters, and it's been incredible to learn about the work that they do. And I can't stress enough how important it is to have nonpartisan entities working for democracy. I deeply respect it, and I'm so grateful for you. So thank you. And likewise, I'm deeply grateful for Michelle. I can definitely say that her entering this race has helped me to dig far deeper into everything that I ever thought imaginable. And so because of her, I think we've both learned, we've both grown, and I'm very appreciative. Moving on to myself a little bit, I've lived in the county for 30 years, raising 3 stepsons in a solar-powered farmhouse, and served nearly 2 decades in public service as a licensed clinical social worker. I currently manage clinical quality for a statewide telehealth company serving Medicaid recipients. Throughout my career, I worked at every level of government, from case manager to clinical operations, focusing on housing advocacy and leading mobile crisis teams for Tompkins County Mental Health, which is now Whole Health. I'm running because our community is becoming unaffordable. My parents moved out of state when taxes became impossible. Young families, artists, teachers, nurses, and service workers are being priced out. Through my work in mental health, I see daily how housing instability devastates families. The stress of unaffordable rent, the trauma of eviction, the fear of losing your home, these aren't just economic issues. They're mental health crises playing out in real time. Housing costs are the single biggest driver of our affordability problem, and everything is connected. So what do? We have to expand housing aggressively. Smart zoning, accessory dwelling units, mixed-use development can create real workforce housing. Every municipality must be pro-housing certified to unlock state infrastructure funds. We must complete the Cherry Street shelter and expand permanent supportive housing. We also need to expand mental health services. The county's mental health department should coordinate with regional healthcare systems while focusing local resources on what must stay local. Crisis, school-based services, and PROS program. We also should explore creating an intensive outpatient unit, which is a gap in our continuum of care for mental health. We need to protect our environment while protecting taxpayer dollars. The county is already transitioning facilities to 100% renewable electricity and electrifying its vehicle fleet, reducing emissions and saving money. That's the kind of smart investment that we need to continue. We need to use every tool to reduce costs for families, give procurement preferences to living wage employers, protect tenants through good cause eviction advocacy, make it easier, not harder, to build housing. We need major institutions to contribute equitably. Cornell pays $4 million annually to the city and $425,000 to the town, yet contributes virtually nothing to the county, despite owning billions in property. And we need fiscal discipline, keeping tax increases below 2% wherever possible. Thank you.
And now the first question, and we will be altering who answers each question first. And this question you will ask first, Christy. How does your background lend itself to the job as a county legislator?
Thank you so much for the question. I think there's a few different ways to look at it. I spent nearly 4 years as a Tompkins County employee myself. And in my role as a clinical social worker for Tompkins County Mental Health, I understood what it was like to go through the employment process, HR process, work for the county, but also what it was like to collaborate with the different departments. The county is about departments, right? And I know what it's like to have to collaborate with folks with different backgrounds than my own within those departments and deeply what those departments do in our community. I also think this is a critical time for mental health services, and we don't have anybody in Legislator who's a mental health professional. And so those two things coming together, I think, are pretty potent. With my background as a current licensed psychotherapist and somebody who understands clinical operations.
Michelle.
Oh, yeah, thank you. We're going to keep it. Sure. So working for a small municipality like the town of Ulysses, you have to wear a lot of hats. And if you look at the list of county duties, so the services and duties of the county per the county charter, I've touched professionally all of those areas in all of the county's duties professionally. I have experience in all of those. So with the 50% turnover in legislature, at least 50% turnover in legislature, I think that my deep understanding of municipal finances and the nuances that are sort of set in stone, the way that you have to function financially as a county and as a municipality, I think that my background there will be a huge support and stability with this large turnover coming up.
Thank you. Now, you start this time, Michelle.
Yes.
It's easier when there are more people. What is the most important job of a county legislator?
Well, it's to ensure that, actually on that handout that I provided, there is the mission of the county legislature that I think everybody, it's a good read for sure. The county has such an expansive set of duties. I was shocked when I saw just exactly what the county's responsible for. So what's the most important job? I think is to represent the people of the district and to make the best possible decisions for the county as a whole. I think representation at this level, at the county level, each of these new districts that have been formed have about 7,000 people in them. And I think that is such an inspiring amount of people to represent. I think it's really possible to represent 7,000 people authentically. So fiscal responsibility and backing up the policies of the county are also huge.
Christy.
I think first and foremost, it's to put people before politics always, right? So this is about people in our community. This is about people who are struggling. This is about people who have needs that aren't being met. This is about people who care very deeply about the community that they live in. And we as legislators it's our responsibility to deeply understand those systems that impact them, how they impact them, and to make responsible decisions that are going to, not only take care of the short-term problems, but lead this county into future health and well-being throughout all the different departmental levels. Of course, it's important for us to keep researching, studying, growing. We have to use research to inform our decisions. But I think perhaps the most important thing we have to do is listen to the people that we represent, be open, be transparent, reflect back to them that we are listening, we do care, and that we're using all of our abilities to make the decisions that are the best for everyone.
Thank you. And now you're starting again, Christy. What is the most important issue the county will be facing this year? Or next year, the coming year?
In 26.
Yeah.
I think there are you can't reduce it to just one issue. I think if I had to reduce it to maybe two, I would say housing and affordability. Affordability is the topic that keeps coming up through so many of the questions that we're asked as legislators. What are you going to do to help with housing? What about a living wage? What about the fact that people are feeling like they can't afford to even take the bus to get to their jobs? So we as legislators have to do everything in our power to ensure that we are working using every tool available to us to help this county remain affordable, to maintain its vibrancy, to keep people here instead of flowing out to surrounding counties and then having to commute in here. We have to create the environment that's going to help with affordability and with housing. And we have many tools that we can use to do that.
Sure. Yeah, I agree with Christy on this one for sure. I think with the pending and current federal cuts that are going on, we're going to have an extremely tricky time maintaining services while maintaining affordability, or trying to be affordable in the first place. What I've heard as I've gotten to know the democratic systems and been out talking to constituents and to agency leadership and all of that is that I think there's some work that we can do around harnessing the resources that we have and ensuring that we have really creative ways to solve the problems that are coming. The federal context that we're in is going to be a huge deal. And it's going to impact the services that we have in Tompkins County. So ensuring that we have clear channels of communication open with departments and agencies.
Thank you. And now this one is also for you, Michelle. Explain how well you know your constituents and their needs.
Okay. Yeah. I have most of my local government experience was embedded in the community that I grew up in, which is a lot of pressure. And I really welcomed the opportunity to get to know the District 14 community. It's, I grew up in, not in the town of Ithaca. So getting to know people in this district has been amazing. And having these individual one-on-one conversations is what really makes my heart sing. I just love democracy. I love local democracy and I love talking about it. So I think the relationships that I've built during this process of going door to door, if I'm elected, these are all really great relationships that I'll be able to utilize to be able to continue understanding. I wouldn't feel comfortable doing this job unless I was in relationship with the people of District 14. And this campaign has allowed me to get started on forming those relationships. So how well do I know them? Not so well right now, but getting to know them a lot more than I was before.
Christy.
I've lived in my district for 6 years now. And when I moved in, it was months before a pandemic hit. I got to tell you, not great timing to get to know your neighbors. But in the subsequent years, I've been really enjoying getting out there. And of course, part of why I decided to run for office was because I needed to get out after the pandemic, working remotely. I was so excited to get out there and knock on doors. And when petitioning started, it was a fantastic experience for me to get exposure to the people in my district. I've realized, you know what, I really do know these folks. Ithaca College, I'm an Ithaca College alum. Longview, I helped people in Longview, people who are, working families with kids, dealing with a bunch of stuff on their plate. Hey, that's me. People who live in these large apartment complexes. I've spent so much of my time working as a social worker in this community. I've hit pretty much every major apartment complex as a social worker. So I would say that I do know them quite well, and I'm so happy to be representative of them.
Thank you. You're doing this one to start with too, Christy. There will be many new topics and issues that come before the legislature. Please describe how you go about learning new things on a tight timeline when important decisions need to be made.
Yeah, I'm so grateful that as a child, I became an avid reader because that is my favorite thing to do. It is my favorite topic. People who know me know that. That's why I have 2 different pairs of glasses that I have to interchange because I ruined my eyes reading so much. I love to read. Reading is the best way to learn. And the county puts out wonderful information. I signed up when I worked for Tompkins County for the newsletters that the county releases on a regular basis. Of course, we have wonderful local media constantly reporting. We have The Voice, Tompkins Weekly, but it's so important to simply talk to legislature, go to the meetings, learn from your colleagues, listen to the folks, go to the community meetings, show up when you're invited, be invested, care, make an emotional impression. Nothing is going to help you remember more than that. So be involved.
I appreciate this question because I think one thing that is going to be maybe not the biggest challenge, but the thing that I really want to keep an eye on when learning about new topics coming before the legislature is to always take a step back and make sure that you've spoken to the people who are most affected by the issue at hand. There's a need for us to recenter the way that we're making decisions in order to really understand problems. So if there's a question about any topic that you'd like, the first step that I'm going to do is make sure that I understand it from the department level and make sure I understand what the county's purview is technically for it. And then also make sure that I'm reaching out to community members who are most affected by the particular issue that is being decided upon. So centering decisions closest to the people who are most affected by those decisions.
Thank you. Now you're answering this one first, Michelle. How would you approach a motion to allocate funds from the county's reserve account? How might you assess whether a rainy day is rainy enough to warrant applying the funds to immediate needs?
Sure. So I think surprised is a good word to hear that the county only has a small number of reserve funds and they keep all of those funds in fund balance. And fund balance is not meant to be used for annual operations. You don't want to pay your monthly costs with your savings, right? So you use fund balance for those rainy days. And what constitutes a rainy day? Don't ask Cornell because they don't know. I think what constitutes a rainy day is a pandemic. What constitutes a rainy day is an authoritarian takeover of our federal governments that's snapping back benefits that really should be going directly to people most at need. So yeah, those are rainy day events, I would say. But like I said, I think it's time to take a look at the kind of reserve accounts that the county has and hopefully develop some of those fiscal policies more.
Christy.
Yeah, this is a great question. I appreciate the county they set a high bar. They want 25% of their budget in savings. That's fantastic. We're not quite there, but we need that. Why do we need that? To bridge, funding for emergencies when we don't have long-term funding in place, right? So think about this with SNAP, with Medicaid, some of these things that might be defunded because of this great, big, beautiful bill that we don't quite know how it's going to impact us yet at the local level. We are mandated to fund these critical services to our community, talking about keeping children fed, keeping emergency housing services going. So You use these services as a short-term bridge, and then you have to make sure that you find structural funding so that you have that long-term funding in place. So how do you decide it? Well, is it impacting the most vulnerable people in the community? That's question number one for me. Well, then we've got to make sure that those things get funded.
Thank you. Now, this one is also to you, Christy. This year's county legislature elections are taking place using new district boundaries. There are now 16 districts, with all 16 districts up for election. How concerned are you that only 3 seats, including District 14, are contested?
I think Michelle addressed that beautifully at the beginning. And she's the one that's really opened my eyes to the fact that, yeah, it's not a healthy sign of democracy when we don't have people wanting to step into local government. I am very concerned. I think that people in Ithaca kind of just rely maybe on the fact that there's a lot of idealistic, liberal, educated people here who want to run. But the truth of the matter is that's not the case. The county had to really scramble to find people to stand up and do this. And I think that we need to be incredibly supportive of people when they step into this role, especially for the first time. We need to make sure we're doing everything in our power to support the people who want to run, to mentor those people. While we are legislators, we need to be looking for people. We need to be doing everything we can to engage people at the local level so people have options and choices and fair representation.
Michelle.
I'm very concerned, and I have been for a really long time. The time that I spent at the town of Ulysses it was really clear to me just how disconnected people are from really understanding local democratic systems, which are in essence what defines our quality of life that we have in Tompkins County. Local government does all of that, and people do not know how to engage with it. And so it's very concerning. I think that it's a really good time for us to take up the topic and push the vote for nonpartisan primaries and ranked choice voting. We need to do whatever we can to encourage people to run for office. And, you know, it's a tricky situation. I think Christy and I have done a really good job making it so like this is a really vulnerable place to be. We're sitting up here in front of here, you know, you put your neck out there when you run for an elected office, and having a culture where we're supporting each other instead of butting heads or being nasty to each other, I think is really important to keep in mind.
Thank you. Now you're asking the next question. Do you have any concern about the fact that so few Republican or right-wing candidates are running for legislative seats? Do you think that the voices of Republicans living in Tompkins County will be listened to regarding issues of importance to all of us?
Yeah, I mean, I think that question is one of the reasons why I'm running as an independent. Besides being an independent to start with, 7,000 people in District 14, about 7,000 people in District 14. As the representative, I want to make sure there's no boundaries to having conversations with everybody. The thing that's happening in our society right now is that the spaces for authentic dialogue, exchange of ideas are diminishing or almost gone completely. There's so much emotion, so highly polarized, and we need to create spaces to do that. And one of the reasons I'm running as an independent is to create that space. I've had amazing conversations with the entire political spectrum. And I do think that despite the fact if I don't agree with somebody, if their voice is not heard, that's a pretty dangerous situation to be in for everybody. So when dialogue stops, the alternative is not a peaceful society. So whatever we can do to increase dialogue is what we need to be doing as a leader in a country that's highly polarized.
Christy.
Yeah, one of the things I've been really heartened to see at the local legislature level is that it is quite nonpartisan. I think the legislators on the local level are very committed to doing what's best for the people in their communities. And if you look at their voting, it represents like look at their voting records, you know, they're doing what they think is best for the people in their communities. I do think it's a concern that more Republicans aren't running. I think it's important for us to constantly learn from each other and listen to each other. We are not going to get past the outrage cycles. We are not going to get past the gridlock if we don't have true democracy and pluralism happening. It's one of the tenets of democracy is pluralism. We need both sides, and we need to tolerate both sides. And I think if we start doing that, the outrage will start to calm down and we can start to connect as human beings again.
The next question is also for you, Christy. What is your opinion regarding the funding of TCAT?
Well, that's a broad question. So the funding of TCAT, you know, it's this partnership between the city, between the county, between Cornell, and we're funding it equally. The problem is that the county is on the hook federally. So if something happens, something goes wrong, audits come in, the county is held responsible for that. And that's just the way that it is set up. There's nothing we can do to change that. So it kind of hamstrings us a bit. It puts us in a position of being responsible, but not being able to govern with the authority that we should have. And it allows certain entities in that partnership to play chicken and not necessarily come to the table and fund. I'm going to say it, Cornell right now is coming to the table. And so we have to collaborate with them. And I do think that the county should have more authority over this because of our liability.
So,
I agree with Christy that it would be nice if the county could have some more way of influencing TCAT and its policies. I'm not sure what the exact mechanisms for that would be, but it is an independent agency that has its own policies and has its own board and all of that. But rural transportation is a social justice issue. And I absolutely believe that TCAT as an agency of the county is absolutely what's needed in our semi-rural district or our semi-rural county. And I will say that I recently went to a listening session of TCAT and was somewhat appalled by the way that TCAT leadership spoke to the people who were there. And it did give me pause about what the county could potentially do to help resolve that. So if you're a county agency, you have an absolute obligation to be respectful and listen to the public.
start this one, Michelle. Do you think it is important that all parts of the county are easily accessible by bus?
Oh boy. Yeah, that's once again, back to the trick of rural transportation. It is such a equation, a conundrum. And I know that TCAT invests staff and software, and there's experts at TCAT that can answer this question a lot better. All parts of the county, you know, they have, I don't know if they're still doing the call, the thing that you call when you want the bus to come to your area. There's also Gadabout for people who can use that service. So all parts of the county, I think there's a similar question about broadband, right? Would it be ideal if all parts of the county were serviced by TCAT? Absolutely. Same with broadband internet. How reasonable is it, and is it affordable to do that is the question that I would have for that question. Because there's a level of reasonableness that you have as far as accessibility goes. So short answer is, boy, I'd love to ask the software people at TCAT that question.
Christy.
I think Michelle and I both agree, and people in this room would also agree, affordability is the #1 issue that this county is facing. And if we want folks living in rural areas to be able to afford where they live and afford their housing and afford food, they need transportation. So do I think it's incredibly important? She called it, you know, it's about human dignity. That's absolutely what it's about. The challenge that we face is that ridership is down significantly. The pandemic really hurt ridership because people are working remotely now. So when ridership goes down, our funding goes down. So this is the challenge that we're facing. We need more routes so that more people will ride, and to get out to those rural areas, how do we get the public using TCAT more so that we can fund it more effectively and make sure that the rural areas in this county get the transportation that they need. That is something we need to start thinking about creatively.
The next question is also for you, Christy. Should low-income, homeless people and children under 16 be able to ride buses for reduced fare?
Well, I'm a social worker and a liberal, so of course I'm going to say yes. I mean, I haven't studied whether or not the economic impact of that, right? Idealism is wonderful. I mean, we all thrive on it, right? But is it fiscally possible? I simply don't know, and I'd have to research that. But I think that would be a wonderful benefit to bring to our community. And I certainly think, again, these are folks in the community who we consider to be more vulnerable, right? Homeless individuals need to get to services. Services are spread out. They're not all in one place. And oftentimes they're mandated to do certain things and they have to get around. Kids also, vulnerable folks, they need to be able to pursue as many activities as possible in our community to learn, to grow, to expand is the question, so I think the simple short answer is yes. I don't really have a lot more to add.
Yeah, that'd be great if that was the case. And I thought that there was at least last I knew there was free fare for youth. I'm not sure if that's still going on or not, but, or maybe it was just a summer thing or it was just a pandemic thing. But from what I understood, I thought that was the case, but maybe that's old news. I don't know. But to answer this question fully, I think you would be able to engage with all of the agencies and departments to really understand, all right, well, if that was the case, what would that mean for ridership? And what would that mean? What's the cost associated with it? So doing the math there is important. So I think I'd be interested in knowing if, for instance, if DSS has an understanding that the bus route and bus services are something that could be utilized by people who are unhoused. And I would ask the departments and agencies that work with youth the same thing.
Okay, Michelle, how do you approach the balance between wages and affordability on the side of workers and the costs of running small or large businesses on the other?
Yeah, this was a question that I think we all answered about the living wage calculation done in the county. And my thought here is that a living wage could potentially put a number of small businesses, if you set the minimum wage to the living wage, small businesses would go out of business. So I would really love to engage with the Workers Center and the Democratic Socialists, the Ithaca chapter of the Democratic Socialists, and the business community itself, and talk about how you can calculate the living wage based on the benefits that the employers provide. So if you have health insurance through your employer, your living wage is a lot different than if you don't. So I think that is a key part of the living wage calculation, is what are the benefits that the employer are providing and how does that affect the cost of living for the employees?
Yeah, I second that. The county did commission a study to study the living wage. What is a living wage in Ithaca, New York, specifically in Tompkins County? $25 an hour, roughly. And there's a $9 gap between that and what the state minimum wage is. It's a pretty large gap. So that's why we keep coming back to affordability. And they're, examining, could we raise the minimum wage in Ithaca to the living wage? And I think the legislature was very open about that at the last forum we had, that, okay, look, there could be some potential issues with this. There are folks who are on fixed incomes that this could really hurt. This could really hurt small businesses. And so Travis Brooks, one of the legislators who spoke so well at that meeting, repeatedly said, this is about affordability. And that's why I keep saying, yeah, this is about housing affordability. What can we do to make the county as affordable as possible, to minimize any impact to people's bottom lines? We also have the Worker Center. You can see who's a certified living wage employer. We can also reward through our county contracts and procurements to make sure that our taxpayer dollars are going to living wage employers.
Now we're beginning to run out of questions. So if you've got any more questions, please write them down. Now, the next question, which Michelle, you're answering, or is it Christy? It's Christy, yes. Some say that the Tompkins County economy is too focused on academia and tourism. As a legislator, how would you work to open up new economic opportunities in the county?
Yeah, there's a lot of conversation about the post-pandemic economy and what can we do to help people get back out there, spend money. I think for the county, this is particularly important because the majority of our budget is based on income, on sales tax, rather. We need to get people spending money in our community. I think we have a very large advantage in a sense with having all these students here. And what we need to do is really work on getting them in the community and spending money. Now, these kids are different. I mean, they're facing different challenges than we faced when we were young. They don't have as much discretionary money. Inflation has hit people hard, but we need to make sure that we're doing everything we can to give them discounts, to highlight our wonderful local businesses. Like I've talked about this at the last forum too, have a restaurant week featuring our local restaurants. Get them in the community, get them excited to spend money at the businesses that are here. And of course, reduce any red tape, make it easy to start a business here, do everything we can to create the right environment.
Michelle.
So yes, our regional economic structure is absolutely based on tourism and students. And I think that if we're talking about trying to encourage other streams of revenue or other economic development, I think we have a vibrant local food system that really could be using support, and it could also be highlighted more. So finding ways to work with the food systems, the local farms and local businesses, I think would be step one. I'm sure that there's a committee specifically that looks at this sort of thing. So if that's the case, I'd be interested in being on that committee. But yeah, I think our food systems, our local food systems, our local farms, small farms and small businesses they're finding ways to support them and highlight them, I think would be a really good first step.
Next question, which you're answering first, Michelle. The airport is an enterprise fund of the county. How important do you feel the airport is? How much would you support the airport financially?
Yeah. Oh boy. The old airport question. I've heard that the airport is, it's absolutely struggling and it keeps getting revived, right? People would argue that it's absolutely crucial to our Ithaca and Tompkins County economic health to keep an airport. The things that I don't know about the airport that I'd really like to understand are about the fees associated with private use of the airport. And an enterprise fund by definition is meant to support itself. So the fact that it's so heavily subsidized is a major concern. I would love to look at the Elmira Airport, the Corning Elmira Airport, which is also a county airport, and study their budgets and revenue sources and compare it with ours, and not just that one, but other ones. So I don't know the answer off the top of my head, but I really would like to compare it to other similar sized airports.
See.
Well, this came up, right? This was a huge part of the budgetary meetings this year because the county administrator had a very ambitious plan to send those short-term rental taxes that we've now can start collecting to that airport. And he said, we need to make sure this could be an economic driver. It's really important for our community. And then what happened was that we didn't have enough money to pay for everything, right? That's what happened. And the legislator had to sit down, go through that budget line by line, look at all of the issues and make some really tough decisions. Do we want to send all this money to the airport, or do we need to send this money elsewhere? And there were a lot of arguments that happened, not arguments, but discussions, right? And ultimately the legislator decided we're not going to send all of the money to the airport. We need to fund TCAT, right? Because they need $500,000 or they're going to go into a death spiral. So this conversation is happening. It's the airport is still getting plenty of money. They're getting like $850,000, right? They're still getting some funds. So I think that we have to make those tough decisions. That's what the legislature is there to do.
The next question you start with, Christy. Which committees would you want to serve on if elected, and why?
Well, I don't think this is going to come to surprise to anybody, but Health and Human Services, because I'm a licensed medical professional and I've spent my career, I'm a social worker. So I don't know how much more I need to kind of restate that and state that over and over. But I do think that I have something to bring to that committee. I really appreciate and admire the county's strategic plan and the work that they're doing and the reimagining of public safety and, everything that they've done already to make this community a healthier, safer place. I would also like to participate in personnel, in budgetary. I know this is her wheelhouse, but I've really enjoyed learning about this. And I think it's so important to have people who've maybe worked in the county, who have county experience, who understand the employee experience working on that committee.
Michelle.
So from what I understand, the way that you get on committees is that at the beginning of the year, you work with the chair and it's a back and forth sort of thing that people get in where the needs are and all that. So I'd like to remain flexible, but I also am not a people pleaser to that extent. So I would really love to get on several committees, including government operations. And that's for the public information side of things primarily, although in general, government operations is a critical committee, obviously. So public information, I think the county, we've been talking about the lack of participation. And I think the biggest reason there's a lack of participation is because people don't understand what's going on. And I think the county could take a leadership role in trying to break down that information into more simple terms. I'm talking infographics on social media, for instance, taking complicated processes in county business and making it simpler.
You answer the next question first as well. How will you work with the other 15 legislatures?
Okay. Hopefully well. From who I've met, everybody's there for a good reason from what I can see. And there's nothing more heartening than to see somebody who's working really hard simply for the altruistic reason of supporting their community and making their community a better place. So you've got a group of people who are perhaps not completely selfless. I know there's probably some ego involved, of course, but you've got people there who are dedicating their time. They're not there for the money. I can guarantee it. So, sorry, how will I work with other people? Okay. Yeah. Well, as an independent, it makes it a little easier, I suppose, because, the communication channels are going to be open to everybody, regardless of their party affiliation. And, professionally, I work hard to maintain healthy, good, honest, authentic relationships with the people that I work with. So that's what I'll do.
Christy.
Yeah, this is big, right? I've been to the legislative meetings, and I see a group of people who care about each other, who support each other, who have each other's backs. It's obvious to me that they have friendships, that they, have worked together on some really tough stuff. And it's like trauma bonding, like these are people you're not going to forget when you're in the trenches with people. I think we have to go into this really open-minded. I think we, as new legislators, have to be super humble, respect the people who've been there, who've been serving 2 or more terms, especially who know what they're doing, offer up what we can, where we can. And just like Michelle said, have deep respect for them because it's not glamorous. People don't become local celebrities. They're doing this because their heart is in the right place and they care about their community.
Thank you. You're first for this one. Being a legislator is a job that will take as much time and energy as you have to give. How will you balance your professional life, family, personal life, and the time required by your role as a legislator?
That's the question we're all asking ourselves this day and age as women, especially. We wear 20 different hats. We've got all the plates spinning. And I think, you know, in my middle age, I have to say, I'm really grateful for having become a really good plate spinner. And you get to this place in your life where you realize, okay, I have some skills. I've learned some things. I have some things to offer. I've made it this far because I know how to manage my time. I've made it this far, you know, in my case, because the kids I've been raising for 7 years are in their 20s now. It was a long road. We got there. And I've made it this far because I'm a manager. That's what I do. I manage. And so I really look forward to the challenge. I really do think that balancing it all is what all the legislators are doing. I don't think any of them are there like living off a trust fund. You know, these are folks who are making it work. And I'm going to be pleased to join the ranks.
Michelle.
So one of the reasons I decided to run, I've been thinking about running for Tompkins County Legislator for years, and this is a really good time for me personally. I'll be graduating from a graduate program at the end of this year and am waiting until November 5th to either apply for a full-time job or a part-time job. So if I'm elected, this will be my primary occupation. So I am really inspired about integrating democracy into my day-to-day life, and that I really like participation in democracy to feel like breathing, you know, that it's just part of the way that we do life, because we get to take so much advantage of all of the rights that we get with democracy, that to find a way to integrate it into the way that I live my life is what I hope to do. So it's a lot of work, but like I said, it would be my primary occupation if elected.
You answer this first, Michelle. Do you believe in diversity, equity, and inclusion work? How would you support this work in county operations?
Yes, I do believe in diversity, equity, and inclusion work. The end of the road for a fully actualized democracy is where you have a high level of diversity, and you have a high level of diversity that is not oppressed in any areas. And so, you know, I think one of the reasons why there's so much tension going on right now in our country is because we are so diverse. We're such a diverse country, and we're trying to do democracy together. So diversity is what makes the product of democracy so good, is that you get all these ideas, you get all these backgrounds and perspectives, and you have a product that really takes full consideration of all of those things. How would I support it? I think that there's a lot that can be done to fortify what's already being done at the county level, and you know, learning more about exactly that department at the county level would be good.
Christy.
Oh, as a social worker, I have so much. This is like big energy question for me, and I have to like get into some talking points. DEI is incredibly important. There is no question that this country suffers terribly from institutionalized racism, sexism, classism. We overcome this by giving people the right opportunities because they are systemically pushed out of having those opportunities. DEI programs are there to say, if we invest in the right way, we're actually going to increase our efficiency, our productivity, and we're going to become better. The problem with DEI programs is that they were not properly implemented. Not that they didn't work, but the research didn't go on the front end that needed to go on to make sure when they rolled out in all these corporate settings that they did the thing they were supposed to do. DEI wasn't the failure. A lack of research and proper implementation was the failure. And now everybody's jumping all over it. It is so important for us to do it again and do it right and have everybody understand. You want to live in a better country, you want to reduce crime, you want to have better education rates, all the good things, we need DEI to do that.
Thank you. Christy, again. What have you learned from attending county legislature meetings as you run for office?
Wow, they have to sit for a long time. they they have snacks and trolls and everything. I was so happy to see that they like personalize their space because I'm like, dang, that's a lot of sitting. You know, I have a workstation at home that I can stand. And but you know, they have learned how to put their voices out there. They have learned how to speak to the issues that matter most to them, to listen to one another, support one another, and then engage in open debate and discussion while inviting the public in. You have to be an amazing multitasker to do all of those things. You know, and so I really have deep respect for what they do. I think it's a bit of a marathon, what they do every other week. And, you know, I don't know how much more I can add to that other than, you know, I really have appreciated the time that I've spent there.
Yeah, I didn't learn this. I already had a deep level of respect for elected officials at the county level at all levels, but sitting there through those meetings really does help fortify that respect. The active listening that happens during public comment. But what I really have learned is that I think we need to find ways to, once again, create space for dialogue with elected officials and not just constituents, but creating space for conversations with leaders of the agencies that the county supports and throughout the department. So public comment period is a one-way thing. County legislators aren't allowed to respond. That isn't dialogue. And I think that there could be a lot of benefit to creating dialogue with county legislators and the experts, maybe in public or maybe one-on-one, I'm not sure, but yeah, I think there's a lot that could be done by increasing dialogue.
Michelle, how would you support constituents who come to you with issues you can do nothing about, e.g., foreign policy or issues that are taking place in other municipalities?
Yeah, I think one of the trickiest things about being an elected official is actually understanding what you have oversight over, or what you have oversight on, or what you can control. So first of all, knowing what those lines are. And one of the most fun aspects of this campaign process has been helping people navigate the democratic systems and the bureaucracies that we exist in. So I think as an elected official, if you have a constituent that's coming to you with something that's not under your purview, talking to them about how they could take the first step forward, engaging in with the decision makers for that area that they're concerned in. I think that in those instances where if there's an upset constituent, you could talk to them about how to build a power base and community organize to possibly lobby if it's a state issue, for instance. So being a community resource in that way.
Christy.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing we don't want to do is tell people that's not my level of government. You know, people are concerned and people are scared, and we are here to listen to them and educate them and help them understand what they can do on a local level. I think, you know, there are so many things that are happening on a federal level all the time that impact people's mental and emotional well-being. We need to process that information and then tie it back to what we can do locally. Validate people's concerns, but let them know, you know, we have responsible folks right here in your local community who really care, who are working hard. I love Michelle's suggestion of let's get people more involved at the state level where they can be involved. Get people out of social media and the outrage cycles, you know, try to talk people into reading local news, getting off of social media and getting invested in the local community after you listen to them and validate them.
Go first this time. This is the last question for your closing statement. Are there any issues that haven't been discussed yet in this forum that you think the voters should consider as they determine for whom to vote?
I would say that there are issues that I'm surprised didn't come out in the questions. You know, there's things that are happening in the community that people are really concerned about. The AI data processing center being one of those big issues that I'm surprised that those questions didn't come up. And again, I think we have a responsibility to protect our environment. I really care a lot about mental health, but I also care a heck of a lot about our environment. And so this AI thing, data center thing coming into Lansing, that's going to, they say they're not going to suck up lake water. Yes, they are. Of course, that's what they're going to, they need the water to cool themselves down. They're going to, put a huge amount of impact on our grid. They're going to potentially drive up our utility prices. So does that make people want to, vote for me more? I don't know, but I guess I want to make sure that I talk about it, that I get people to understand how important the environment is and how we need to be stewards of the environment and, now and into our future.
So something that I'd really love to do if elected is create secure, free-flowing open channels of communication with the constituency of District 14. And I've heard that this is something that's been tried before, but the idea is office hours, weekly office hours of some sort. I think I said earlier that I really would not feel comfortable being in this leadership position if I wasn't in relationship with District 14 constituents. So I think that also includes going out to different areas, like Longview is in District 14, so maybe there's a monthly meeting there. There's a couple like Linderman Creek and the apartments across from the hospital. I'd love to be there once a month, talking to the people who live there, out and about, and just trying to really understand. Well, and also this is a two-way thing. I really would love to help District 14 understand the landscape of local democracy and of the county in general.
Right, now the time is for your closing statements. And we're going to do these in the other order. So Christy, you're going to start with your closing statement.
All right. Well, thank you so much to everybody for bearing with us all this time. I appreciate it. My statement is, well, thank you for the opportunity to discuss the issues that matter most to District 14 and Tompkins County. Tonight, we've talked about affordability, housing, mental health services, and how we fund the government that serves us all. These aren't abstract policy debates. They're about real people. As a licensed mental health professional, I see the connection every single day. Housing instability creates mental health crises. Unaffordable costs drive anxiety and depression, and families are forced to choose between paying rent and getting care. Everything is connected. I'm running because I've spent nearly 20 years working directly with people who are struggling in their homes, in crisis, and in systems that are supposed to help them. I've seen what works and what doesn't. I know the difference between good intentions and real results. The path forward requires honesty about our challenges and creativity about solutions. We need to demand fair funding from Albany instead of accepting unfunded mandates. We need major institutions like Cornell to contribute equitably to the community that supports them. Most importantly, we need representatives who understand that every budget decision affects real people. The single mother trying to find childcare, the senior on a fixed income facing another tax increase, the young professional who wants to build a life here but can't find housing. Their well-being, economic, mental, and physical, depends on the choices we make. I bring nearly 20 years of public service experience, deep knowledge of how government works, and a track record of getting results for people who need help most. I'm asking for your vote because I believe that we can do better, not someday, but starting now.
Sure.
Local communities are being pitted against themselves to fight over the scraps of resources for services that the federal government is taking away, but is more than capable of continuing to fund. There are no sides when it comes to our community. We're all in this together. Municipal finance has always been important, but given the federal context of cutting SNAP and Medicare, an extremely high level of municipal fiscal literacy will be essential as the county grapples with the question of providing necessary services while understanding the impact on affordability. In the face of all this, what will be needed in the future is creative teamwork. If elected, I'm committed to fostering and building excellent relationships with county staff, agencies, and constituents. These are the experts of our community and will be my primary resource. Increasing space for dialogue with these experts is at the heart of my plan if elected. My concrete plan for addressing Tompkins County's affordability challenge is based on the idea of accurately defining and understanding how we got here. In our district, we pay 3 different property tax bills: school, county, and town. And we're all feeling the pressure either directly as property owners or indirectly as renters. Each tax levying entity is focused on its own needs. I'll centralize the conversation with all tax levying entities in the county by getting local government and school districts together to talk about the full picture of the property tax burden. As I lead this centralized conversation, I will also push for us to build a multi-year planning process around taxation so that we understand the implications of our choices over the longer term. Amanda Champion, the retiring county legislator who represents our district, has endorsed me. Amanda in particular knows this job better than anyone, and I'm deeply humbled by her support. Thank you all for your excellent questions tonight. And for those watching at home or recording, I appreciate you taking the time. I would be absolutely honored to represent District 14.
Thank you both very much. As ever, thank you, Ted, for making it possible to reach out to the greater audience. Big thank you to Pamela, who as always drops in at the last minute to help me with timing. Thank you to all of you for coming. And if you look on the back counter, well, the back table behind you, there's information about the League of Women Voters. There is a statement by the League of Women Voters by the ballot proposition on the back of your ballot. It's not telling you what to vote, it's giving you pros and cons. And I think it's a really difficult decision to make. And then their information is on the back counter. And to repeat again, anybody who would like to make a donation to the League of Women Voters of Tompkins County Education Fund, that's our tax exempt fund, because that covers the cost of education, which this is, and voter outreach and so on. It would be much appreciated. And lastly, a big thank you to the church. Okay.
Ted, we're good, right?
Amazing.